Okay, folks, we have a lot more in the waiting room, so just give me one more moment before we
No
start
worries.
this month's National Equine Call. Thank you.
No, this is the 1 o'clock.
Okay, welcome everyone to this month's National Equine Conference call. We have dedicated this call to New World screwworm updates. So we will have USDA and hopefully some state updates provided they're able to get on to this call, as well as FDA as well will be joining this call. And just before we start, I do want to call to your attention that the American Association of Equine Practitioners, in collaboration with USEF, is going to host a webinar for horse owners. Screwworm is in the United States, what horse owners need to know. Just for folks interested, we will post this information on our U.S. Equestrian Federation website. And if you go to our homepage, right on the homepage, you can register for this free event open to anyone. And it's going to be an overview of screwworm and the situation in the United States for horse owners specifically. So with that, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And at this time, what I'm going to do is I will turn it over to our folks at USDA. Chris Needham with the directorate. He's the deputy director of the directorate for screwworm. And Sarah Hola with USDA APHIS will take over. Dr. Hola and Chris Needham, thank you for your time. I will turn it over to you.
No, thank you. Really appreciate the invitation. Really appreciate the ability to talk to all of you today about. I know it is probably top of mind for a lot of you, given the news here over the last week, and certainly wish we're speaking to you under better circumstances. Like she said, I'm Chris Needham. I'm the deputy director here for the APHIS New World Screwworm Directorate. And for those of you that don't know what that unit is, it was stood up late summer last year to sort of really sort of as a coordinating body, to make sure that there's kind of a unified all hands on deck approach for screwworm, not just across APHIS, but across all of USDA and really across all the federal government. Now, we kind of view ourselves as a coordinating body here, making sure that the federal government is throwing all available resources at this and making sure that certainly the VS folks, our animal health leadership and program are able to do the good work that they need to be able to do to respond to this outbreak. For more than a year, USDA has led this national response effort. We've deployed enhanced surveillance, strengthened our border defense strategies. We've had cross-border collaborations with Mexico and into Central America. And the one thing that these efforts have done is they bought us critical time and ensured that we are better prepared to respond to these detections. I know all of you watch these issues closely, and I think you would all say that we're in a much better spot to respond today than we would have been a year ago. If you look at any of the projections, once this pest moved to Veracruz and kind of started moving north inside Mexico, most of those models projected that it was going to be here last year. But thanks to the work we've done here and the cooperation that we've had both with the state, federal, industry partners and the work we've been able to do in Mexico, we've held it off until now. We are far more prepared to respond. It's really those extra efforts and the extra time we've had that's sort of given us the ability to respond as effectively and quickly as we've had. We've talked about those preparation efforts before. I know all of you have been involved in many of those, whether it's the New World Screwworm Playbook that Veterinary Services developed, and I think you all participated in the development of that. Tabletop exercises, the additional trapping and surveillance and outreach we've done. It's a whole range of activities USDA, states, industry partners, and others have been leading from, and we're definitely in a better spot today because of all that work. So appreciate all the work that's gone into that. So while the last week's news was disappointing, we were ready and we're responding appropriately with every resource we have available to us, not just here at APHIS, like I said, across USDA and the federal government. So where are we? As I think you all know, there are 7 confirmed New World screwworm cases in the United States. Let's go through this real quickly. The first of those was June 3rd, when we confirmed the first active case in a 3-day-old beef calf in Zavala County, Texas. June 5th, we confirmed a second screwworm case in a 1-month-old calf in that same county. It's about 5 miles away from that first confirmed detection. On June 7th, we confirmed 2 additional cases of screwworm in the United States, a calf in LaSalle County, and then a dog in Lee County, New Mexico. And that was the first, and to this point, only detection that's been outside of Texas. On June 8th, we confirmed 2 additional cases, a calf in LaSalle County and a goat in Gillespie County. And then on June 9th, we confirmed 1 case and a calf at Edwards County, Texas. So to that point, those are the 7 confirmed cases that we have. Obviously, a big part of what we've done here is increased surveillance. So between us and our partners here in Texas, we're definitely going farm to farm, looking, putting out additional traps and trying to increase that surveillance and see if we can make sure that we're addressing this and identifying those as quickly as possible. So I want to talk a little bit about what we've done since then. The key thing is we've instantly deployed people. Right now, there are over 50 APHIS personnel deployed and directly responding to the outbreak. The state of Texas itself has at least double that number responding. We have an APHIS strike team on site, includes veterinary medical officers and animal health technicians. These are the experienced experts who serve as USDA's boots on the ground in the response force. And while that's going on, we're also making sure that we're fully positioned to surge additional trained personnel as needed as the situation on the ground develops. Another thing we did was that we had folks with the National Veterinary Services Laboratory. We've deployed an entomologist right there to Kerrville, Texas, where there's a USDA agricultural research lab. And really the goal with that is we want to be able to expedite the confirmation process and make sure that they'll be able to do their diagnostic services right there in Texas, and we can get responses back as quickly as we can. We've also deployed 2 dedicated screwworm mobile preparedness and field operations trailers. Those trailers convert into operational laboratory space, providing USDA personnel with equipment and the environment they need to mount a rapid and effective response. And I think really the key thing here is that USDA and us in the Texas Animal Health Commission, we remain in the we created a unified incident command structure, and we're implementing actions consistent with the New World Screwworm Response Playbook. So I know I think Dr. Dinges is going to be on a little bit and can talk about these a little bit more, but this includes maintaining the 20-kilometer infested zone with the quarantines and movement controls and heightened surveillance around the initial detection. It includes increased trapping and surveillance all around the region, including in wildlife, and includes the targeted outreach to producers, veterinarians, and communities to make sure that everybody is on high alert and looking for what they can do. And another key thing that we're using is sterile insect technology, SIT. So we have been deploying hotspot sterile fly dispersal over each of these detections. The number of those ranges between 2 and 4 million dispersals twice a week. And really, that's our goal. We want to make sure that we have the sterile insects deployed as quickly and rapidly as possible. In addition to the aerial flights, we're also deploying ground release chambers, and those allow the sterile insects to hatch out of the ground release chambers and be distributed in a localized area. We've got at least 4 million flies per week being dispersed through that region. In addition to that, we continue dispersing sterile insects in a regular sterile insect grid that's traveling from basically from Laredo, Texas, down to the Gulf Coast, all along the border. Over the last couple months, we've been releasing between 5 and 10 million flies per week in Texas along the border to serve as a critical buffer and barrier to keep those flies in Mexico. But with the recent adjustments to the grid that we've made, as well as some of these hotspot flights that we talked about over these active cases, we are now releasing over 30 million sterile insects in Texas per week. And that's out of the 100 million or so sterile flies that we're able to disperse. I just want to flag for folks because it's important for these efforts when we're releasing sterile insects. We do dye these insects so that you can more readily tell the sterile flies from the wild flies. There's orange and green dye that we're using at our various facilities. So sometimes you can actually see the dye on the insects themselves, but where it really comes in handy is for the identifiers. They fluoresce. So if they have the right light, you can look and the flies will actually glow, which really, really helps aid identification and speed that along. And sterile insect technique really is one of the keys here for us, and that's why we've put a really renewed emphasis on production. Let's give you just a really quick overview of our production capabilities here today. Right now, the only facility we have producing sterile flies is the 100 million or so down at Copeg, and that's a joint U.S.-Panama facility in Panama. They are producing 100 million sterile flies per week now. That's the only place we have. We have had a partnership with Mexico to rebuild or renovate a facility down there to produce sterile screwworms. That should come online, thankfully, hopefully in this next month. Once that is in line, they will begin to ramp up production, and Mexico tells us that they will have an additional 100 million flies per week by the end of this current calendar year. So by the end of the calendar year, we are hoping that we'll be able to double our sterile fly production, which will really allow us to tackle this problem and build that barrier even broader. But really, the main effort that we're focusing on here is our production facility down at Moore Air Base down in South Texas. It's a facility. We had the groundbreaking for that in early April, and we're kind of doing this in a phased approach. Phase one of that is 100 million sterile flies, and that is on target for November of 2027, so a little over a year ago. And then full production of that facility would be a total of 300 million flies by that following year. You may have seen the recent statements from the secretary and also from the governor of Texas over the last couple of days about the need to speed that process up even further. So we have had meetings with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who's overseeing the process for us, as well as the contractors are working on it. And we are looking at every possible lever and tool and waiver that we can use to speed that production up, with the goal of having that initial operating capacity moved up from November all the way up to April. So that's an ongoing effort, something we're really working very, very hard on. And I think the real key there for us is once we get to that full capacity, we'll have 300 million flies at the Moore Air Base, 100 million at Matapa in Mexico, and 100 million down in Panama, a total of 500 million flies. And if you look at the historical record and when we eradicated this back in the 60s and 70s from the United States and eventually drove it down to Panama, you had about 500 million flies per week. So once we get to that number, we're not just going to be able to protect the United States, but we're going to be able to drive it back into the Darien Gap and keep it out of the country for good. So I'll stop there and turn it over to Dr. Ohola.
Thank you, Chris. And Katie, did you want to just open the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll just start with a couple. I have a couple of questions regarding Mexico, the status in Mexico, and the number of active cases, the percentage of equine cases. Is there somebody that can speak to that? That's the first group of questions, and then I've got a couple in the chat.
I can start on the equine cases part. When we've looked at the data coming out of Mexico, so Mexico publicly posts their data of the KIPS observations that they see each week on their website, and so we have access to that. And when we've crunched the numbers on that, it's about 4 to 5% of the cases they've reported over the last year have been equine cases. The majority of them have been bovine.
And from an epidemiological standpoint on the equine cases, are there any highlights that you can provide or any information we can gather from age of animals, such as are these umbilical wounds and castrations?
I don't have a lot of data broken down by age, but a lot of the data that we've seen with respect to the types of injuries, at least for the ones that are reported to us, not every report includes full epi information from it, but at least from the ones that are reported to us, a lot of them are kind of classified as trauma wounds. So that could be, fence injuries, other types of cuts and abrasions, those sorts of things.
Okay. The question in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Needham. Is there any benefit to use of aerial applied or ground sprayed pesticides around known infested premises?
I might kick that one over to Dr. Ohola to sort of talk about what options might be available in that space.
Yeah, I don't know that.
I wondered if I could get my mail, my dear. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I'm the expert that can best answer that question, so I have taken that question, Dr. Marshall, and banked it so that I can get an answer officially. But I want to say that we do evaluate the local ecology when we have a detection and work with our entomologists, both within the directorate and those that we have within veterinary services to evaluate what the best way would be to respond locally. We have deployed ground release chambers of sterile flies. So that is a tool that we have if that would make more sense rather than rerouting planes for aerial drops. But with regards to pesticides, I don't want to speak to that directly. So I've taken that question and I will get a response back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. One question is, what is the reasoning for closing the border to exports to Mexico, and what are the requirements for the border to reopen into Mexico?
Well, the decision to close that market was based upon Mexico's request, or basically what they communicated to us in that space. So I know veterinary services and their technical trade folks are sort of working through that process, those technical discussions to see what options are available and if there are ways that we can sort of negotiate a protocol that Mexico will agree to reopen that market.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, there is no timeline currently for reopening or criteria for reopening.
If we're talking about imports from Mexico, or are we talking about exports to Mexico? Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have a timeline. I mean, those negotiations are ongoing. I know Veterinary Services met multiple times this week with Mexico. It's an active, ongoing priority for the trade staff, but I don't think we can put a timeline on it.
The American Horse Council is getting calls about concerns for horses that are stuck in slaughter pens, as unlike cattle, there are no other options. People are anxious that shippers are going to limit their care due to limited resources. People are asking about the ability to export these horses who have no options, as they cannot go to Canada and there are no current plants in the United States.
Sarah, do you have anything in that space?
That is just the comment. The follow-up question was, is Mexico not recognizing current screwworm protocols for import?
That's correct. So part of this is making sure that the protocols and all those things are aligned with what Mexico's current requests are.
Okay, here's another one. We now have several cases a significant distance from the Mexican border. How did the traps not identify any screwworm flies before now?
I appreciate that question, because that's one I've asked myself here as we've sort of gone through this. We don't know the answer to that today. I think that will be an important question for us to sort of figure out about how it came into the country and sort of how it got, that initial case was what, 40, 50 miles or so from the border. How did we get from there to there? I think that's a question we all have. We just don't have the answers to that. But I think it's kind of a two-part thing. One, we're going to try to find the answer for that and find ways we can definitely improve our processes if there is something that did not work correctly, but also just emphasize the continued need to maintain the barrier across Mexico, the Texas-Mexico border there, to make sure that that surge of population that does exist down there continues to stay down there. And hopefully that these cases that we're seeing are more one-off kind of cases that we will get a handle on.
There's a follow-up question on the horse movement to Mexico question. What is the USDA doing to address the horses that are stuck in the kill pens in Texas?
I do not have an answer to that question. I don't know, Sarah, is that one we should take back?
Yes, I don't know that we have a response to that, other than I know it is the Secretary's highest priority to facilitate trade but also she's steadfast in her commitment to keep the border closed until we can come to a different conclusion based on risk.
Based on conversations with other species, horses are the most impacted livestock when it comes to movement restrictions and requirements. What is USDA doing to recognize the specific needs of equine movement in relationship to screwworm protocols? Sarah, I think I can start a little bit on this if you don't mind. I know we have been, I work as the chair for the AAEP task force for screwworm, and we have been working with American Horse Council, AAP, and USDA in these discussions on interstate movement requirements for horses, specifically as it relates to treatments, because there's limited treatments available for horses, specifically the Dectomex product is an injectable, and there's concerns about injecting prior to movement and or prior to going to a competition, because there could be some muscle soreness as that product is labeled for injection. And we do know that under extra label use and under AMDUCA, the veterinarian can consider ivermectin oral products for treatment. However, we have some concerns related to resistance in that. So we have had discussions with USDA about looking at a tiered approach for movement rather than treating all horses that move. Can we look at a tiered approach for risk-based, such as those obviously with wounds would need to be topically treated, and if it's a deeper wound, those would be ones that consider a systemic product. And those that have no evidence of wounds or infestation areas would be able to move without treatment. So I know these are the tiered system of movement treatments that we're looking at, trying to see if we can get a standardized tiered approach across the industry. I know that's been presented to USDA, and that has been the discussion. So, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you to add any additional comments.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. And I should probably introduce my role here since I didn't get a chance to say that. So I am within veterinary services in APHIS, so working alongside Chris Needham and the New World Screwworm Directorate to respond. And my new role in this is the National Incident Coordinator for our response at the veterinary services level. So I was initially brought in to coordinate our national response and preparedness. However, that quickly changed into being the national incident coordinator now that we do have a detection, unfortunately, on U.S. soil. So just wanted to kind of help explain my role here today, and I appreciate that you invited me and Chris to come and talk with the equine industry. I want to start by saying, first of all, we at USDA understand that the equine industry is unique, and that the movements of horses and other equines is not like movements of other species. And I just want to add, as a lifelong horse owner and former competitor at the national level, I understand that just from a personal level. Just wanted to add that I understand the complexities, and USDA is committed to recognizing those challenges and working with our state partners. And we have been doing that prior to this detection, and that conversation is ongoing on how can we make this workable and still be science and risk-based in our policies. So we are committed to continuing those conversations. Unfortunately, they didn't get finished before we had a detection. So we have had to shift our time and our focus to the immediate need, responding in Texas, investigating the isolated case that we have in New Mexico, and we are busy responding with that. But in the background, we are still committed to continuing those conversations. So as Katie mentioned, we have evaluated a proposal to look at a tiered response. So looking at horses kind of on a triaged level. In other words, are there no skin wounds, and are there maybe like light abrasions that are not deep, or do we have deeper wounds, and can we handle those differently? I think we all agree that the available drugs that are out there right now, that the FDA is working hard to increase and make more options available, but what we have available now for the tools at a systemic level are not something that the equine industry wants to find using regularly, right? I don't think any of us want to be injecting these drugs into our horses' necks or rear ends or wherever we would need to put them on a regular basis. So that's not ideal, and we acknowledge that. So I think this tiered approach could be a workable solution. However, it's not something that we have agreement on with our state partners. And I want to say at the end of the day, the state authority is what will decide what restrictions are put in place. However, I think the sooner we can come to a consensus and get to a harmonized approach, I think that would be to the betterment of our states and the betterment of our equine industry partners. So we are still working on that. So I don't have anything that we can release today and share. Any updates that we do adjust to policy would go up on our national website, screwworm.gov. And so I will just encourage that we continue those conversations between USDA and our state partners. And then I'm going to go ahead and encourage our industry partners to continue reaching out to their states as well to keep that dialogue open. So that's kind of what I have for the response to that thought, Katie, if you want to keep going from there.
Thanks. I have a couple more other questions for you both. The question is, we now have several infested areas. What is the process and timeline for these areas to be declared free?
So according to the playbook, which you can also find on screwworm.gov if you haven't had a chance to review that, we are tracking these at the case level. So we wait for the wounds to resolve on an individual animal. And when the last affected animal's wound is healed, we start a 21-day countdown. When that 21-day countdown has closed, then that premises or that location can be declared unaffected. We are keeping that updated on our website. So that again is available at screwworm.gov. And so right now you're only going to see active cases because we have not made it through a 21-day period past any affected cases at this time. We are reporting those cases at the county level, which is consistent with our reporting for other disease incidents.
So Sarah, just to clarify or follow up on that, it would become a unaffected premises, but what does that do for the infested area? Is that released at that 21-day mark?
The infested zone would be closed. It would just depend, Katie, on if we had a nearby premises. So the zones may still be in place if we have other infested premises in the area. So it's a little nuanced to reply to, but we will remove them as being on the map. You will no longer see it as active if we are able to close that county as being having an active case inside of it. If that makes sense.
That for a horse owner that's moving and they're having to go by infested areas. So the case may be off the map. Is the infested area maybe still an infested area?
Correct, if there's a nearby infested premises. So that's why we recommend you work with your destination state and your origin state where your horse is leaving from to ensure what the requirements are between states.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything. If anybody else has any comments, the usual in the chat or in my email or in my text messages is good. So please provide that. At this time, I'm going to hold Sarah and Chris. Thank you. But if you guys just hold on in case we have additional questions, I'd appreciate that. I don't know if Dr. Dingus or anybody from Texas was able to join. I know they are a little on the busy side and they were going to try. Oh, I'm sorry. I got another one coming in. American Horse Council has heard from a breed association that is launching a show in, oh, I'm going to kill this, San Luis Potosi. Sorry. And the U.S. Foreign Ag Service officer at the U.S. Embassy have indicated that they can create a pass for horses traveling from the U.S. to Mexico that will allow them to return to the U.S. They met with a representative of the Foreign Ag Service in Mexico and they promised follow-up. Can USDA speak to this?
Chris, do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Okay. I can tell you that conversations are ongoing between USDA and Seneca, which for those that aren't familiar, Seneca is their National Department of Agriculture. So we have been talking regularly. Conversations began this week. So I can't speak to the latest update, but I do know that solutions are being discussed, but I can't speak to any commitments that have been made.
And that's for both export and import, Sarah, because I think this is an import.
Yeah, I'm sure that they are discussing both sides of the movement. Yes, and we understand that high health horses that the equine industry has a way of moving them safely. However, we are still evaluating the risk, and so at this time, the restrictions stay in place.
I did get one more for Canada. Just to clarify, Canada is a 21-day not been in or transiting Texas. Is that correct and still accurate?
Well, that was my most recent understanding, but I will be honest, I'm not tracking all of the requirements currently. So I always recommend that you work with, you refer to CFIA's website for their latest updates. You can also reference our website for animal movements at USDA. I don't have that exact link in front of me. If you need me to provide that, Katie, I can, but I don't want to speak to the most current, but that's my understanding.
Okay, I'm just doing one last quick. Is there anybody from Texas? Just last call there. And then I have an update that was provided for New Mexico. Okay, here's a crystal ball question for you. Would you anticipate a solution to the border in less than 6 months?
When you're dealing with international negotiations and particularly with the environment that we're in today, I don't think I want to hang my hat on any kind of prediction at this point. But I think, like Sarah said, this is ongoing, regular, repeated technical discussions. Trade remains a priority for all of this administration, and we're going to do what we can do.
Okay. So I don't hear anything from Texas, and they did give me a heads up that they might be a little on the busier side and may not have anybody, and they did refer to their website, which is very up to date. From New Mexico, again, they weren't able to get on either, but the current information is on their website. They will have a map posted today with the infested zone and the adjacent surveillance zone marked for the dog case. They did establish these zones. They have not been able to find any evidence that the dog traveled in spite of some of the preliminary information that was gathered. So at this time, no additional cases have been found in the area, but their website will be up to date with a map this afternoon, is what Dr. Holick from New Mexico passed on to share with this group. Any other questions, comments for USDA? And if you guys just hold on, because I'm sure some will come up as we go. But if we have none at this time, I'm going to try to transition now to FDA, Dr. Amy Philippi Taylor. I think you're on here. Yes, there you are.
Yep.
Amy, if you could just give us an overview of kind of what's out there right now and products that are available and kind of just a quick overview of the authorizations.
Yep, I can do that. I do have some slides, so let's see if we can actually share
You
those.
should be able to. Tell me if you can't.
Just give me a second. I was hoping to just share the actual slide presentation. There we go.
Can you? Oh, good. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. How does that look? Does that look okay?
We're seeing presenter view.
I have to remember how to switch that. Hang on a second.
The three little dots down below. Oh, there you go. Yep, there you go.
Does that look good? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna go through some of this introductory stuff quickly because Tristan did present to this group a couple of months ago. And I just want to let everyone know that FDA has also been working on this problem preemptively for many months, including reviewing products for emergency use authorization, which is this is a new pathway for us. We've never done it before for animals, and so we have been, working as quickly as possible to try to provide as many tools in the toolbox as possible. This slide it gives a summary. These slides I think were updated 2 days ago. We have a new EUA that's been authorized, so it's not completely current, but it's pretty close. So there are 3 conditionally approved drugs, and this is just for animals in general, not for horses. And 9, now 10 emergency use authorizations. We've also been looking at supply chain resilience and coordination with all of the agencies that have been working on this problem. And this is just just kind of a brief overview of what our regulatory oversight is. So it's the approval of new animal drugs, conditional approval, emergency use authorization, and extra label use of FDA approved drugs. So I'm going to just briefly talk about the different approval pathways. So there's your typical FDA approved product. That product that is sort of our standard process. There's a conditional approval process, which is available for certain conditions. Those are typically minor use indications, minor species indication, and there is an expanded conditional approval pathway, which is what we are using for these New World screwworm products, and then emergency use authorization. This slide talks a little bit about human food safety. That doesn't apply for horses, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And this slide also mentions that there are no animal drugs that have full approval for New World screwworm, myiasis, treatment, prevention, or anything else. So everything right now is under conditional approval or emergency use authorization. So full approval, there are many technical sections that go into completing a new animal drug application or an abbreviated new animal drug application, which is a generic product. Our process ensures that these products are properly quality manufactured, properly labeled, safe and effective. And then for food animal species, we are ensuring that the human food safety is evaluated as well. Conditional approval meets all of the conditions of full approval except for substantial evidence of effectiveness. And so the evidence that supports a conditional approval is to the level of reasonable expectation of effectiveness. It's a slightly lower bar, but there is some evidence to support effectiveness. And then for emergency use authorization, this is a little bit more of a risk-benefit decision. Everything does not necessarily meet the same standards for approval or conditional approval. There are also various regulatory statuses for these. For approvals, you can have prescription only, veterinary feed directive, or the counter. And this is based on FDA risk assessment. For emergency use authorization, it can be even more limited. We can offer those marketing statuses, but there's also additional limitations that we can impose, but depending on the risk that we assess. And then the duration of approval, full approval is generally without any limitation. it would take extraordinary safety concerns that would change. The conditional approval is up to 5 years. So the drug sponsor has the ability to renew their conditional approval every year up to 5 years. That gives them that time to obtain that full approval to do the studies. And then for emergency use authorization, it remains in effect during the duration of the New World Screwworm Declaration emergency. And then that can be EUAs, individual EUAs can be revoked at any time based on additional scientific evidence that comes. So I have already mentioned the regulatory standards for effectiveness. So it's substantial evidence of effectiveness is for full approval, reasonable expectation of effectiveness is for conditional approval, and then emergency use, it's based on the totality of available evidence. It is reasonable to believe the drug may be effective for the indication that you'll see on the fact sheet. It is important to note, these slides don't mention it, it is important to note that the information available for these products is on our website, and I will put a link in the chat when I stop sharing. But the fact sheet provides you all of the necessary information for using the product. And then we also put out a publication, which is called the FOI summary. So that's Freedom of Information Summary. That contains often even more detailed information about the studies used to support the decision for the EUA or conditional approval. So those are all linked on our main New World Screwworm information for veterinarians website. So you can look at the information that was used to support all of these authorizations and approvals. And that the intent of that is we don't make treatment recommendations. We can't tell you what product to use when, but we can try to provide you all of the information you need to make those decisions. So that is the intent, and the intent of making that website easily accessible when everything is in one location where you can find that information that you need. And so I think, we do have a slide that's just for horse products. So the previous slide listed the authorizations that are just across the board for all the animal species. And then specifically for horses, there are these 4 available authorizations. There are no conditionally approved products for horses. The Dectamax CA1 is conditionally approved for cattle only. So it's really only the horse authorization is only under EUA. But note that Dectamax is an FDA approved product. So extra label use is permissible. Extra label use is only permissible for full approved products. Extra label use is not permissible for conditionally approved or emergency use authorization. So you should be following the instructions that are on either of those, either the conditionally approved label or the emergency use authorization. At this moment, we don't have any products that are conditionally approved for New World Screwworm that are not also fully approved. So anything that is fully approved can be used extra labelly. Anything that is not approved in the US and only has an EUA in the US, those should not be used extra labelly. So hopefully that is clear. And then we have here, so the Dectamax, we've mentioned that before today. It is an IM injection for horses. And I don't have the summary information right here in front of me, but I did review all the data. So there is a lot of data conducted in horses in the 90s. I think there are there's a target animal safety study. So it's a margin of safety study. There is an injection site safety study. There were several dose confirmation studies for standard GI nematode type parasites in horses conducted at that time. So there were a lot of horses that were administered Dectamax that supported this EUA, but there is no data specific to New World Screwworm effectiveness. So what we used for that to support that EUA was pharmacokinetic information, and we tried to summarize that as best we could in the fact sheet and in the FOI summary. But hopefully all of that information will help you make decisions on where this product is going to be most useful. The indication for horses for the EUA is for prevention only, and that prevention is it's intended to mean like sort of a prevention for a general time that you would consider for wound healing. So because that is how we evaluated it in the food animal species, and that's how those studies were done. That's how because we're using comparative pharmacokinetic information from cattle and horses, that's how we are, sort of inferring that information to horses, because there is no specific data in horses. The indication also limits it to horses 1 year and older, because the safety information that we have for this product, there is no information in horses less than a year. So that is where that comes from. For the topical products, there are the F10 products. Those are products that are indexed, so they are legally marketed under the minor use index, and or minor species, sorry, minor species index, and they are basically they have an insecticide in them with some antiseptics, so that you're sort of able to treat the wound and sort of prevent. So there is prevention and treatment claims on those. And then the Negacint powder is an organophosphate with carbamate combination. Again, it has, I think, a sulfanilamide in it as well for topical treatment of wounds. That one has some more limitations to its authorized use because of the human user safety requirements for that. So these are basically what's available for horses right now. We are currently continuing to look for other options. We are limited by what drug sponsors bring to us, but because the bar is based on risk benefit, I mean, we don't necessarily need the same level of data that we would for an approval. So, we have been encouraging additional research on horses to hopefully bring about some other options for horses as well. This is what we have right now. And I think that's all I had slide-wise. I'm willing to answer questions if I can.
Amy, thank you very much for that great overview. Just to clarify one comment, I just want to make sure we all heard this. There is no published studies on any product that's effective in horses, about effectiveness in horses, excuse me, for New World Screwworm.
Right. I specifically said it for the doramectin, but it is true for all of the EUA products right now and for any other products that we are aware of. We did an extensive literature review as part of our activities in, evaluating this problem. And we have not been able to find a single study in the published literature, and we are not aware of any studies that show specific effectiveness in horses. So what we are doing is we are looking at the studies that have been conducted in cattle or other species, and then using pharmacokinetic information to estimate that the product may be effective. But again, that standard for EUA is may be effective based on the totality of information.
So that's the one, just making sure everyone's aware there is no published data out there, number one. Number two, on the efficacy of the Dectamax, just to make sure we're all clear on that. The way it is based on the efficacy for the cattle and for the fact that it is for implied that it's for the time of wound healing, so not a duration of longevity.
Yep. So the cattle conditional approval contains what we call a prevention of reinfestation claim, which is basically a longer term prevention. That's what we intend by it. But the wording is, there's specific reasons for it. What's important to know is that it is a sort of a longer duration, and that is based on studies in cattle and like those are live studies that showed that duration of prevention. Unfortunately, the pharmacokinetic information that we have with horses, we cannot extrapolate to that indication. So we do not have a duration that we can put on the authorization to say it's going to last this many days in horses. The PK profiles are a little bit different in cattle and horses. They're not bioequivalent. And so, some of what we're doing is we're trying to make scientific guesses.
Yep. And that's what I want everyone to be clear on, that other point. And can you speak to the use of ivermectin and where that would fall on yours? Or would you like me to start and you can go after that?
I can just say that at the moment, there are no ivermectin products authorized for emergency use. There is extra label use is permissible for products that are approved in the US. And I will just say, um, there is information published on effectiveness in cattle for the Ivomec EUA. I would recommend for people trying to make treatment decisions now, I would recommend reviewing that information and understanding that the pharmacokinetics of oral ivermectin in horses is very different than injectable ivermectin in cattle. And if anything new pops up, our website will be up to date. And actually, I do want to make sure that I include that website for everybody, so it's there in the chat for you. Yeah, so that's all I can say about it. Again, we don't make the treatment recommendations, and I really can't talk about things until they're publicly available. So if, all I can say is there's not currently one for horses, but there is one for cattle,
Yep.
and you
And
can maybe
if
use that information.
Yep. And just to clarify, it can be used, the oral ivermectin is a fully licensed product that can be used under extra label use at this time with the historic knowledge of it has been used and it is used in other countries for this purpose, as well as the data that is presented under the FDA approval for the cattle product. Did I say that right, Amy?
Yeah, ivermectin, that there are several approved ivermectin products for horses in
Yeah.
the US, and they can be used in an extra label manner.
Yep. So again, one thing I will plug is the American Association of Equine Practitioners recently published a document that we did work with FDA on what are the therapeutic options. So everything we just discussed is actually listed in that document, as well as the EPA premise products, or the ones that are listed as pesticides for fly control for and individual animal, as well as premise fly control for New World screwworm. So that document is on the AAP website under New World screwworm prevention and treatment therapeutic options. And there is an AAP recently published this last week as well, guidelines for New World screwworm. And the Equine Disease Communication Center does have a horse owner fact sheet for New World screwworm. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I do believe we answered the question in the comments or in the chat about what products to use on livestock and dogs. It's on the FDA website that Amy just put in there.
There are a lot of authorizations for dogs and cattle,
Yeah.
more than there are for horses. So
Yeah.
I would encourage you to look at the website for those.
Amy, you might want to allude to this. I think we've talked about it, but are there products used in horses in other countries with New World screwworm?
Yeah, so the mainstay of treatment doesn't seem to be drug-based. We do have conversations with experts that are, living in countries where it is endemic, and it does seem that at least in horses, when they get a case, it's, surgical debridement, and there may be a use of another product, but so there is some experience, but it doesn't seem to be that drugs are the mainstay for treating these. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why there aren't a ton of studies for horses, because they are managed more on that individual animal basis, like a companion animal versus livestock. So I think that's, what we've learned in all of the conversations we've had. And we've had lots of good conversations with experts. So.
Okay, just because I got to ask this again. So what resources are available? So we have the AAP has for veterinarians, the guidelines and therapeutic options. The EDCC has the horse owner fact sheet. The American Horse Council and U.S. Equestrian Federation have the screwworm web pages for information for the horse owner. And then the one other thing, just because I want to plug this, is that we are doing the American Association of Equine Practitioners and USEF are doing a joint webinar on next Thursday, June 18th at 4 p.m. for the horse owner, what you need to know about screwworm. It is at 4 p.m. It is free. You can register. You're looking at our USEF webpage to sign up for that webinar. AAEP will be doing a webinar, date to be announced, as we're trying to get USDA and FDA speakers later this month, the 25th or 30th of this month, for practitioners to give more technical guidance and information on treatment, identification, treatment, and management of New World screwworm. So I think I've got all of the information out there. Are there any last questions, comments? We have a few seconds related to, or a few minutes, I should say, related to this call. I want to thank USDA and the states for all of their efforts with New World screwworm. I'm sure we'll have to be giving updates next month as this progresses. As Dr. Hola said, 21 days from the last infected animal heals. So we are going to definitely have some updates by next month. So I'm going to give one more last call for any questions or comments. This webinar recording will be posted within a week on the Equine Disease Communication Center website so that anyone that missed the call today can go back and review it. Amy, we did get a question in. Can I get your slides to share with the group? Sorry, there's Amy.
Yeah. Hey, sorry. I will have to ask that about the sharing the slides.
Okay.
They do sort of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
The most up-to-date information really is on our website. So
Okay.
I'll have to ask about the sharing of the slides.
Okay. Well, that was the last question I have. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Chris. Greatly appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.